So, Sally, thank you
Hello.
very much indeed for joining me for this conversation.
You're very
And
welcome.
thank you. And one of the reasons, one, you're a notable personality. You've done lots of things. You've touched many people in many ways. You've had your own fantastic success in the Hall of Fame. But the other thing is you're very much involved in the success of others as a coach in swimming and many other areas. And one of the reasons that I was really taken by having a conversation with you is, and we must talk about the swimming, it's a major part of your life.
Yeah.
But one of the light bulb moments for me is that I'm not really a swimmer. I'm a wet duathlete and I did a bit of a triathlon. And at the end of my triathlon days, people said, "Oh, are you going to, try and swim the channel or something like that?" So, oh, no, 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 that's ludicrous. I'm not going to do that. And then you took up triathlon, you did a marathon, now you're rowing. And I was so impressed by somebody who could leave their natural sport and turn themselves into other sports, that flexibility, that diversity, maybe even that courage to try something completely new and different. And, you've achieved an awful lot in swimming. And I'm not going to take anything away from that. But to be fair, I'm more humbled by your versatility and your courage to try new and different things. Tell me about that.
Well, I, I swam before I walked, so swimming is my natural. I should have been a fish. My dad always said that. I've never known not how not to swim.
Mhm,
So swimming was very natural, and I became a champion at 10
mhm,
in the days before indoor pools, before winter swimming. It was just summer swimming in the sea at Half Day Park Bathing Pool, which is now the Lido. And it was just a very natural way of life for me.
mhm,
And as you know, I've got a long swimming career of competitive swimming and long distance swimming. And I do call it long distance. I don't call it open water because that's what I grew up with. Open water to me is more triathlon, 10K racing that people do. A lot of people do it in wetsuits. And it's
mhm,
all about racing and winning competitions. And that's not where I'm from. And in 2010,
mhm,
I was on holiday with some my friends in Gran Canaria, and their granddaughter had been battling with cancer, bone cancer, for 3 or 4 years. She was only 13 then, and she contracted this bone cancer, sarcoma,
mhm.
which is a very aggressive bone cancer. It kills a lot of young people as well.
Okay.
And we were on holiday, and they said to me that the cancer had spread. She'd had all her treatment. She'd had so many rounds of chemotherapy and everything else, and that it had now spread to the rest of her body and her heart, and that she hadn't got long to live. And she was 14 at the time. And I came home, and then their granddaughter subsequently passed away at the age of 14. She had just turned 14. And on that very day, I was teaching on poolside, and uh, somebody came on. It was Anna Tredent, actually, came on poolside because we were teaching her girls to swim. And she didn't know the history about this little girl, but she said to me, because I'd always kind of said it would be, I would love to say I've run a marathon, even
Mhm,
though I've never run.
mhm,
And I think she knew that. So anyway, she came on poolside and she said, "Oh, by the way, there's a space in the variety team for the London Marathon next year." And I said, "Well, sign me up then." And it was because of this little girl dying. I thought I've got to do something for children that would benefit children. So that was it. So I got signed up in the December. I was then very, very ill with a chest infection. I'm very susceptible to chest infections because of asthma that I have. That I was diagnosed when I was 35, and I couldn't train until second week of January. And my friend Annette Campbell said to me, "I'll help you." She was gobsmacked that I'd even thought about it. And so she said, "Come on, I'll train you." And so she gave me a training plan, and we started that in January. And it was probably the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. I mean, for me, if I'm really honest, swimming the channel, I've never found it hard because it's natural. The two-way obviously was difficult, but that wasn't difficult because of the swimming. It was difficult because of the time frame. But the running, and I remember when I did my first 5 miles, I was so made up with myself. And there were days where I just couldn't do it. My legs just wouldn't work. And there were days where I felt absolutely great, as you know. And then when I finally, and that particular year, 2011, was a very warm spring. And I remember doing my 18 miles run with Annette and my friend Chantal and her partner, Cliff, who's my swimming buddy, actually, one of my biggest supporters on the boat. And they ran with me to do the 18 miles. And we started running at Jersey Pearl. And we went all the way along the trail, all the way to Portland, and then down the railway walk along St Albans and past the Havre de Pas and got to Le Hoc, turned around and came back to Havre. We finished at Havre de Pas so I could go in the water and soak my legs, because I did that every time I did a run. And I just burst into tears. I went, there's no way I can do another 9 miles on top of that. And Cliff, who is a marathon runner, and Annette is a marathon runner, they said, Sally, if you can do 18 miles, you can do 26. It's not a problem. And I went, oh God, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And that was like the end of March. And I think I had 3 weeks to taper, which I then did subsequently. And it was a really hot day. It was boiling. And in fact, the marathon, when we did it in April that year, was really, really hot. It was 85 degrees. It was like a summer's day, and it was really, really hot. And on that day, I just plodded to 18 miles and found 2 other ladies who were struggling. And I said, come on, we'll walk the last 9 miles together. So we just walked it together and finished uninjured. Took a long time, doesn't matter, 7.5 hours. I was delighted that I'd finished it and without any injury. And I think for me, that was probably the hardest challenge I've ever done in my life, to be honest. And that's my first ever race. I've never done a race before. I've done a couple of novice triathlons just for fun. I did one completely unprepared in 1991, I think. And then I did another one in 1997 or 98 when I was much fitter. And actually, I found it harder, even though I was more prepared, because I think I knew what was coming. But yeah, so yeah, that's how it came about, really.
And I mean, it's kind of obvious that you're a very disciplined person or it seems obvious to me, maybe it's not the case, that you're a very disciplined person in terms of your commitment to your sport, in terms of the regularity with which you do your training. Where does that come from?
For me, it's about how I feel. And right now, at this moment in my life, I mean, I did a channel swim in 2022 and I switched off. I haven't really swum. I haven't swum trained since then. And I'm now at the stage where I've really missed it and I really need to get back into it. And I'm just about to embark to start training again for my own fitness to make me feel better. I've continued doing, I have a little dog, so I walk a lot with my dog. So my legs are quite in good condition, but they're not running condition. But I've just started embarking back in the gym. I do a bit of Zumba. I do a bit of strictly dance class, which is a bit of fun on a Friday. And I do Zumba twice a week. And I'm going to do a step class this week because my friend does it and I'm going to try it. I teach aqua aerobics. I keep myself as active as I can to fit in with my dog's life. He is the reason I get up in the morning at the moment. I don't know if you know, but I won Strictly as well in 2018. So I think it was April, I got a phone call from Ashley Tracy from Radio Jersey, and she phoned me and she said, hi, Sal. She said, we're running a Strictly competition in November for children in need. And I went, yes. She said, how do you know what I'm going to ask? I said, I have always wanted to learn to dance. She said, okay, well, we want you to be one of our celebrities and we'll pair you up with a dancer later in time, but you've got to keep it secret.
Mhm.
I said, okay. So I kept it secret. And then in the September, and I was just about to go off and do some swim guiding for a swim company in Greece. And it was like the beginning of when everybody else were going to start their training. And it was the time when they were just announcing who was dancing with who and who the celebrities were and who the dancing teachers were. And we went to the meeting at Reggio Jersey and people draw names out of a hat. And I got paired up with, and he wasn't even there, so didn't even meet him, Dragos Petrescu, the Romanian professional dancer over here, who is incredible and amazing. And they said, we're going to pair you up and you're going to do the waltz. And I went, okay. So, and I was quite heavy in weight at that time. Anyway, I went off and I did a couple of weeks in Greece. And while I was there, Dragos and I were communicating about the music, because he obviously, by the time I came back at the beginning of October, we only had 3 or 4 weeks to train for this competition. Everybody else had started already in September. So we picked the music while I was in Greece. I came back on the Sunday or Monday, and I was in dancing on the Monday night and carried on that. Well, I cannot tell you, and you hear the Strictly people on television saying what joy it brings you, it changes your life. I cannot tell you how accurate that is.
Mhm.
I just left my full-time job, so I'd just gone into semi-retirement, and this was an absolute joy in my life to go to a dance class. It was incredible, even though it was only a waltz. And we had 3 weeks to train, and Dragos was making me dance 3 times a week, and we learned our routine, and we just got it. And I said to him within the first week, I said, we're going to win this. And he said, no, 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 you're just doing it to compete. It's for charity. I said, no, we're going to win this. And there were 2 nights at the art centre. There was the Friday night and the Saturday night. And we went in on the Friday night, and yes, sure enough, we won. And second was Julie Stanier and Philip Leclerc, who were doing the Paso Doble. And anyway, so, and then the second night we had to do a rerun, and we came runners up to them. And so it was really nice that and it was just so much fun. And as a result of that, I then went on and carried on with private lessons and group lessons and social dancing. I was probably dancing 4 times a week, and I was losing weight. My legs were great. I was really slim. I was really fit and really happy and smiling. And it was just one of the best things I ever did. And then COVID hit and everything had to stop, and it was just a nightmare. And now I can't get back in because you have to have a partner to go and do the dancing. So I am working on it, which is why I'm doing a bit of Zumba and a bit of Strictly Dance, which is just like an aerobics class, and a bit of this and a bit of that in the class. But it just gives me that lift that
Mhm.
you need, endorphins, I expect, really. But that was just wonderful, and it was short-lived, but it stayed with me forever, and it will stay with me for a long time.
I'm curious, when we watch the television Strictly, very often the athletes actually don't perform very well because they tend to be very stiff, very strong,
Mm, mm,
very unidirectional.
yeah.
And whilst you think that physiology of being an athlete would be fantastic, it does seem to be limiting in dance. How did you find it?
Oh, well, as a child, I am very musical as well, and I have a natural ear for music. I used to play the piano, the guitar, the violin, the clarinet.
Wow.
Did all of that as a child as well. And by the time I was 10, 11, my mum said, you've got to choose. You can't do everything. I sang in a choir. I did all that stuff as a youngster. And so the music ability, or musicality is what they call it, is natural for me as well. I'm very lucky. And it was just a matter of honing in on that and pulling up on those skills. And I'm quite a quick learner with dancing as well. Like if I was doing an aerobics class routine, I'd follow the teacher and I'd pick it up quite quickly. There are people who aren't very coordinated, so which is a bit of a shame. But I'm fortunate that I can do that. And so to learn a dance routine, which is only, I think, was only a minute and a half, when the whole routine, maybe 2.5 minutes. I can't remember. I've got it on video. I can just send it to you. But was just, it was for me, it was just, and I watched everybody else learning, and they all felt exactly the same. We used to meet up every so often and compare notes as to how we were all getting on, and everybody just had a great time. And I hope they do it again because it was so much fun.
One of the things I've learned from you in this conversation, so I have only recently discovered this, um, is the breadth of your interests. You talked a string of instruments that you used to do. Obviously, my first interest was, wow, you do more than just swimming, and we shouldn't play that down. Your swimming achievements are truly remarkable. Where is the breadth? How do you identify? Because you talk, I should have been a fish, but clearly you'd be a musical fish who also rides a bike,
Dancing,
throwing,
dancing fish.
plays the clarinet.
Yeah, I did all of those things for a little while, and then I'm not very good with exams, and it got to the point where you had to start taking exams when you have these lessons, and that's when I kind of switched off because I'm rubbish at exams. I hated them at school, and I was talking to somebody only about this today about their grandson and how he struggles with school and exams, and I said I don't think kids should have to go through exams. I don't think the likes of Elton John and these top musicians, I don't think they did that. I think they played by ear and it was natural. And I was like that. I could sit down at a piano now if I had a piano and I could knock out a tune because I can hear it. I've got a good ear for music. My dad was musical. My mum wasn't, but my sister is, and my two brothers and my mother weren't. So I think I've got the music gene and the musicality gene because my dad was a dancer, and when he was courting my mum, he went and had secret lessons so he could dance with my mum. So I think you are musical or you're not.
Mhm.
You're a natural swimmer or you're not. I think I'm not a ball sport person, whereas my brothers and all their sons are all cricket and hockey players. The funniest thing is that my elder brother, my younger brother, and me, when we played hockey, we were all goalies because none of us could run, which is ironic, but that's the truth of it. Yet their kids are all ball sports, they play they're good hockey and cricket players. So there's sport in the family, and I think it's a genetic thing, but also we always have a healthy approach to sport and the bigger picture. We're not insular people. We like to diversify, if you like. And if I had time, I think I would like to go back to learning a bit more piano, but on my own terms, not exams and things like that. I think that was very important. I mean, a lot of young kids now that go to school and specialize in their swimming, by the time they're 7 or 8, a lot of them are told they have to stop this and stop that. And actually, I used to love my dancing, and I remember dancing right up until, sure, I danced until secondary school. I don't really recall, but I just, and I know, and I went to see The Sound of Music the other night, and it was just so emotional. I just loved all the music, and I was singing along, and everyone's going, "So glad somebody else knows all the words." And I go, "Yeah, I know all the words." And it's just music and dance. They just give you just a joy in life, really. And swimming does that as well, but in a different way. Um, Swimming's very individual, very you do it on your own, really. I don't think it's a team thing, unless you're a team competitive swimmer. That's a different story. But a lot of these kids that go into swimming and sport early on are told to stop all their other activities, and I'm not sure that that's healthy or right. But I can't tell people what they can or can't do. But
One of the things you touched on a little earlier is, some people are natural swimmers, and I definitely wasn't. And I had
I
my
remember coaching you, Tim.
You did, and you had a tremendous amount of patience. And I also remember Steve Hickson saying to me something. He said, "If there's an award for the person who could make the most splashing, you definitely win it. Unfortunately, none of that is taking you forward."
No, exactly.
But as somebody who is very accomplished, how does that? And we talked now a little bit about the next generation and teaching and training and standards. How does that affect the way you teach? Because it's not just your success. You've been behind a lot of other people's success. How has that affected your approach when training and coaching and supporting others succeed?
It hasn't affected my teaching and coaching, it's enhanced my teaching and coaching, and I still am doing private adult teaching at St. Bernard's Bay Hotel pool, just twice a week, just keeping my hand in, really. I teach kids in a little tinies up to the age of probably 5 in a little physiotherapy pool, but it's out of action at the moment since the storm had the roof blown off, so I can't teach with them at the moment. So I'm keeping my hand in at both ends of the scale at the moment, and I teach and coach in the sea in the summer, where my passion is. But teaching for me is a passion, and teaching kids to be safe and happy and confident in the water is the drive that I have. I get a lot of children come to me who are terrified or who have been terrified, and to get them confident underwater and then swimming for fun. I
Mhm,
mean, I go around people's pools in the summer and I teach in their private pools,
mhm.
and that is just so much fun. I have so much fun. I take all the sinking toys, we're outside, and we just have a great time. There's no serious. There's a bit of, you have to be safe, but once they're underwater and we play underwater and they swim, once you get a child's confidence underwater, you can
Mhm,
do anything with them, anything. Once you've got that, and adults are the same. I spend my life teaching people, adults, to breathe,
mhm.
which sounds ridiculous, but I spend my life teaching people to blow out and blow bubbles in the water, because that's what they have to do in able to breathe. And so every single lesson is focused on breathing, and that's what I do. And it's great to see the progress. I mean, I did something last week with a couple that come together, and I said, right, we're going to hold our breath for half the length. And this is a man who panics every time he goes in the water because he can't get enough air. And it's a 20-meter pool. So I said to him, right, I want you to hold your breath for half the length. I said, and then trickle the air out for the rest of the length.
Mhm.
And I guarantee you'll be able to do a length without taking a breath. And he went, I can't do that. I went, try it. Well, if you'd seen his face when he'd finished that, he just went, I cannot believe I can do a length without breathing. And I went, it's all about the breathing. Life is about breathing. If you do yoga, you do Pilates, you do swimming, you do running, you have to get the breathing right. And when I started to run, because I was a swimmer, my breathing got me to run better, because I'd already sorted out my breathing while I'm a swimmer. And rowing, when I was rowing with, I'm rowing with Johnny Searson at the moment, and we just got on the ergs in the morning on a Wednesday, and I think we've had 3 or 4 sessions already, and he said to me, your breathing is what's keeping you nice and smooth on those rails. And I went, oh, that's great. It's good to know. So, it is all about, as a kinetic, it's all about the kinetic. Everything has a reason, and you cannot do one without the other. So you have to sort the breathing out first before you do anything. Dancing as well. You don't hold your breath and dancing. So yeah.
And it seems to a certain extent the world has caught up with you a little bit insofar as, of course, we now have celebrities like Wim Hof talking about this, whereas you've been doing it for many, many years.
Yes, and there was a French man, I can't remember his actual name, but it was something like Le Boyer, who
Mhm,
spent his life, he's dead now, I think, but he spent his life going around the world doing workshops with a salad bowl. And
mhm,
he would go and get people, you wouldn't be able to do it now with health and safety, I don't think, but he'd get people to come up and volunteer to put their head in this salad bowl and blow it. And I mean, he must have made an absolute fortune. But I've spent my life doing it just because it's the way to teach people to swim. And that my dad and I used to laugh about it a lot. But yeah, it's just something that's inbred in me. And I still get a lot of children coming to me who've been taught elsewhere, holding their breath, and they
mhm,
can't go underwater. They can't put their face in the water because they're holding their breath.
mhm.
And it's a vicious circle. If you hold your breath, you feel like you're going to panic, so you don't put your face in the water. I spend my life doing that.
That ability to control your breathing, that's at the core of, you know, some quite advanced sports like free diving. Have you ever been tempted to do that?
No, I've watched a couple of films about that. It's terrifying. It's like ice swimming. You know, the ice swimming fraternity are trying to lure me in.
Mhm,
It's one of those things like freediving. It fascinates me.
mhm,
Now, I spent a lot of my life being quite claustrophobic with a mask on my face. I didn't like having my nose covered because I'm a swimmer and I blow out through my mouth and nose. So I faced up to my fears a few years ago, and while I was still working at the Aqua Splash, I became a snorkel instructor so I could get over that and teach kids to wear a mask. And then I did I did the ultimate, and then I was in St. Lucia last year and I did my paddy. So I was really pleased that I could get down to 60 feet.
okay.
It was terrifying I had a couple of sleepless nights waiting for this dive. And the instructor said to me, please don't worry, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be holding your hand and you'll be fine. But my problem was my buoyancy, because I'm too buoyant. So I had to keep regulating my belt to go up and down and my air in my tank. And oh my God, that was very stressful, but I've done it. So I just need to go and dive now somewhere nice and warm.
And you're certainly come across as a bundle of energy, and repetitive challenges, whether it is dance or playing a musical instrument or trying paddy, your life is rich with events, things that happen.
Yeah, I'm not very good at having nothing to work for or
Mhm,
to aim for. So I like a challenge. I've just signed up for a couple of little swims next year with other people, just for fun, really, just to keep keep me going, to give me something to do, because this year I've kind of drifted through the year, which has been nice.
mhm,
But I think anybody who wants to do anything has to have a goal to work towards. And a lot of people who have come to me in the past, and I've helped a lot of people with channel swims, round Jersey swims, Jersey to France swims, relay swims, just a swim from St. Catherine's to Archie Rondale and back, for those who want to. Um, Everybody needs a goal in life, because what's the point in getting up out of bed, really? You need something to work for. So that's the way I operate, and I think a lot of people are like that but don't know that. I think a lot of sports people have a goal, don't they? They have a drive. So triathletes, their aim will be in a half an Ironman, or just to do the sprint triathlon, or then move on to the internet, the whatever it's called, the Olympic triathlon, and then half an Ironman, and then an Ironman, and they do it in, a
mhm,
lot of people do it back to front. But if if somebody said to me, like, for instance, Eric Blakely,
mhm,
mountaineer, character, you know, character personified, really, years and years ago, and he swam the Channel in 2003. So 6 years before that, he'd come to me and Charlie and said, with his then girlfriend, said, we want to swim the Channel. And I go, how much swimming have you done, Eric? And he said, none. I said, okay, well, let's teach you to swim first. So I said, your first goal. So I set him a plan, a 4 or 5 year plan. And it was, first of all, we've got to get you swim to
mhm,
Castle Harbour, then Green Islands. And then once you've done that and you like it, then we'll try and swim from town to La Roque. And so we kept adding on little bits,
mhm,
and then they did a half island swim each,
mhm,
separate days, and then they did a round Jersey swim, and I think that was probably 2000. I can't remember exactly what year it is. Their plaques are down at Green Island. And then they said, right, we want to do the Channel. I said, and so I spoke to another person, and they said, why don't you get them to go and do round Manhattan? So they went and did round Manhattan. And his girlfriend did the Channel in 2001,
mhm,
and Eric tried it in 2001 and didn't make it. Now, this is a really interesting fact. Before he went in, because he'd done a lot of mountains and hadn't succeeded on all of them first time round, he wasn't worried about failure or not completion.
mhm.
And he went into the Channel with that mindset and said, it doesn't matter if I don't do it. I'll have given it my best shot. So I was on his boat and we got to 15 hours and the pilot said to me, we're not going anywhere. We haven't been going anywhere for the last 2 hours. I said, well, you need to tell Eric that. He's a grown man. No, I can't tell him. You tell him. So he came out and it was a lovely sunny day. And he said to Eric, he said, look, Eric, where we are now, we haven't moved for like nearly 3 hours. He said, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're not cold. We know you're fine, but it's going to take you another 12 hours to get to France. And he said, oh, I can't do that. So he climbed out of the boat, said, sorry to keep you all waiting, got us in the boat and went back. When we came home back to Jersey, he went into a bit of the doldrums. He wasn't happy about it. That affected his life, affected everything to do with what he was doing, affected his relationship. And a year later, he said to me, oh, so they wanted another go. So we went and had we went back to Dover the next year and never got in the water because the weather was so bad. And I said, okay, so we booked it again for 2003. Racing forward, in the meantime, he'd got married, had a baby on the way, and we got to Dover and I was there and I met a bunch of Americans who I'm still great friends with. And Eric's tide was due in like a couple of days' time after I'd been on another person's boat. And we went out for dinner and I said, so Eric, tomorrow's your swim. How are you feeling? He said, well, I cannot come back again. I have to get it done tomorrow. Good mindset, went in 21 hours. He did an amazing long channel, a traditional channel swim. And because he had a different mindset. And for me, I'd said to him on the first attempt, I said, you need to have a different mindset, Eric. He said, no, I'm fine. I'll be fine. But he wasn't fine, and I tell that story and he doesn't mind. He knows I tell that story. And I think positive mindset is how we all achieve things. I don't think it's always physical. I think a lot of it's mental, personally.
I'd agree with that. But I'm really curious and I'd love to explore what goes through your mind through what at times must be an inky blackness. You can't always be passionately forging, driving ahead flat out. I can't imagine you could swim flat out for 21 hours. So there's something else, some other sort of rhythm, routine, thought process. What is it that keeps you going?
When I get in the water, I go into a meditative state, I think. On my 2-way, which was a 36.5-hour swim, I fell asleep. They put somebody in next to you so you don't drift off. They know you it's not really a sleep, it's like you doze off. But it's metronomic. Your arms are sending you to sleep because you're moving. And I got in that swim. Remember, it was 3 or 4 years in the making because we'd had 3 or 4 attempts to get there, get in and not do it. And I got in that day to swim to France, but swim back to England. That was all that was in my. There was never one time that I said to my crew, I want to get out. I've had enough. I'm too tired. They knew I was tired. I never said it, but I was completely alert for the whole day. And it was we were probably 4 or 5 miles from England on the way back. And it was a beautiful, hot, sunny evening. And I I think it was from the way where the sun was in the day, I actually said to my crew, what's the time? Is it about 5:15? And she said, it's 14 minutes past 5. And I said, so at 12 minutes past 5, 41 years ago today, that's when I finished my first channel swim. And she said, okay, well done. And they couldn't believe how alert I was. I mean, I didn't have my watch on. I didn't know what time of day it was. I just had this feeling it was around that time because my first channel swim was in 1975. And it was a daylight swim, it was 11 hours, 57 minutes. And I finished in fog and it was just a swim. And this two-way was when I left France, and it's all on the video actually. When I left France, I just said to the girls, because they came in with me to feed me and bring my grease, so I re-greased and had a drink and had something to eat, clean my teeth. I said, right, I'm swimming back to Charlie, because Charlie was unwell and he wasn't on the boat. And I said, I've got to swim back to Charlie. And that was my aim. And I just got back. And that was it, really. I have been on swims where people say, God, I'm really tired. I've never felt like that.
Mhm.
I think I could probably swim plod for a long time, which I have. And uninjured, at the end of that, there was no injuries at all. Bit of tendonitis in my thumb, but that was it.
And I hear stories that people, some people can, the tongue will swell, the salt water. I mean, are these things that either don't affect you or they do affect you and you just
Oh,
find a way around
yeah,
that?
on that particular swim, because I've been in the salt water for such a long time, my whole mouth and my throat and my nose was all ulcerated with the salt. I
Mhm.
couldn't have any champagne, and I couldn't eat or drink anything properly for at least 10 days.
Wow.
I was living on ice cream
Mhm.
because that was the only thing that felt nice when it was going down, and it was just really, really sore. But if you do last year, I didn't have any problems at all on a one-way swim, and that was 15.5 hours. Previously, I'd had, you get a salty tongue and your tongue peels sometimes, but that's lasts 24, 36 hours maximum. But my 36-hour swim caused a lot of issues. And I don't know if you've heard of Sarah Thomas. She did a 4-way English Channel in 2019, and she had the same problem, but she'd spoken to me before she went in about
Mhm.
how I dealt with it. So she was having things that was coating her tongue while she swam as a result, and having mouthwash quite regularly, which helped it not last quite so long for her. I think her swim was like 53 hours or something like that. But yeah, quite remarkable.
And when you're in the zone, for want of a better
Mm.
phrase, nowadays a lot of people talk about mental health. They do meditation, they may do yoga. There's a lot of mindfulness.
Mm.
Do you think that's what you're experiencing when you're in the water?
Yes, I think it is. I think that's why I've always been a very positive person.
Mhm.
This term mental health that everybody is talking about, I think I've escaped that because I've swum so much, or I've done things so much and so often. It's a bit like the menopause. I find that all a bit overhyped, and I think because I've swum, I never suffered. And I think it was a natural prevention, and everybody, since COVID, everybody's taken to the sea, as you probably well know. Everybody, as the bays are full. And I expect today, every single bay in Jersey on high tide this morning for about 3 hours will have been full of people, dry robes, hot flasks, woolly hats and boots and socks, and I find it really funny. I shouldn't say that, because it's something, and a lot of people don't understand why I don't swim every day.
Mhm.
And I walk my dog 3 times a day, and I can guarantee I'll meet somebody, at least one person on every single walk. Been for your swim today? I'd go, no. And this morning there was nobody to go swimming with, so I didn't go swimming this morning, and I'm really regretful that I didn't go in, but I won't swim on my own. I have to practice what I preach.
Mhm.
I don't believe in swimming alone, and I'm sure if I'd gone down to St. Catherine's, there would have been people going in and out of the sauna, and there would have been somebody around, but I just decided not to go in.
Mhm.
But I don't need to go in every single day. I've done a lot of it. I don't need to do it every single day. But there are women that won't go a day without going in the sea, and some of them take risks in rough weather. And I always say to people, the sea will always be there. It's not going away, Yeah.
I mean, it won't be a surprise. I think you're more active than the average person.
I would, I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree.
And, but I think, well, I don't know this, but I wonder if the world is becoming more sedentary, and therefore that's why perhaps there is a mental health crisis and anxiety and depression. Or what do you think?
I think a lot of it is social media.
Hmm.
I think people pay too much attention to it. I can get sucked into social media. I try not to. I
Hmm.
try not to get too involved. But sometimes it's the only way you can find out what's going on these days, because a lot of people do everything on social media. So if you want to know anything, and I'm pretty sure if I'd searched the social media swimming sites this morning, I'd have found someone that was going swimming and I could have gone swimming with them, but I didn't. I decided not to. We went for a nice long walk with my dog instead in the
Hmm.
beautiful weather and didn't get cold. So, um, and yes, I think that the pressures of people working too hard and too long,
Hmm.
especially in the finance industry at the moment. I think there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people. And Jersey is a very financial island, and the cost of living, and there's so much going on. And I think a lot of people are under pressure to keep up with the Joneses, for want of a better term. And I don't mean that derogatively. I just mean it practically. And I've never been money orientated. I've always tried to live my life as much as I can within my means. I've traveled extensively and managed to survive all of that. And I think that a lot of people get sucked into pressures of other people doing things and they want to do the same. And I think people should just live their own lives as best as they can, because we only have one life.
Hmm. Who are your role models or superheroes? Who are the people that you aspire to mimic, be like, follow, learn from?
I don't want to be like anyone else. Sarah Thomas is probably at the moment my swimming hero. She's half my age. I mean, she's going to be, I think she may have just turned 40, or she's going to turn 40. And her swimming CV is absolutely phenomenal. She did a two-way North Channel last year, and she's just a different animal completely. She survived stage 4 breast cancer. A year after she'd finished her treatment, she did a 4-way English Channel. I did Lake Tahoe in California in 2019, and it was the hardest swim I'd ever done, because I got altitude sickness while I was swimming, but I finished it. And then when I looked at, I should have learned a little bit more before I did the swim. But I went and looked at the records, and she had already 10 years before done a 2-way Lake Tahoe. And I just thought to myself, do you know what? That's a different, I can't even comprehend that. And when I spoke to her about it, she lives in Colorado. She lives at altitude, and her natural habitat is lakes. It's not sea. So to swim in the sea for her is like for me swimming in a lake. So that was the difference. And so you can resonate with all of that. You can understand all of that when you get the facts. And in fact, when I did my 2-way, she was just about to do a 2-way Lake Champlain in Colorado, which was a 100-mile swim. And so I followed her on her tracker, and there was a live video of her climbing out. So she swam for however long. She's fast as well. And I watched her stand up and walk out. And I said to her, how did you do that? Because I couldn't do that after my 2-way. And then I said, hang on a minute, how old are you? And she went, 34. I said, oh, that'll be it then. So, it's all relative. She's a young, strong, very fast swimmer. She's now coaching other people, which is great. And she's doing a really good job. She had some great successes this year. And we're in touch. And actually, she was very humble. And she said to me, because I messaged her after she'd done that, and I said, I'm in awe of you doing that. She said, Sally, you have to remember, I had your two-way swim in my mind and my head while I was doing that swim, and you kept me going for that. And I went, really? I just find that really amazing that she would do that. We didn't know each other at all, but we made very good friends very quickly. And you do, the swimming fraternity is very close that way. Yeah.
And I'm taken by that closeness of the fraternity. You already mentioned a couple of people, Cliff being one, and
Yeah.
obviously you got quite a few, maybe they're not all heroes, but you have a good collection of people around you that are important.
Yes. Do you know Cliff? Cliff.
Not very
Have you
well.
met Cliff? So
Yeah, we met.
Cliff is one of life's uh he's the most helpful person in swimming. He's helped so many people cross the channel, cross lakes. He's been on my last 4 channel swims, and he's one of these. I don't have to say very much to him. I just have to. He knows me really well now. And if I ever do any more swims, he said to me, he's already going to be busy, but we'll see. But he's one of those. He had 7 attempts at the channel before he completed it.
Mhm.
So he's been through a lot of resilience before he actually did it. He's done it again since.
Mhm.
And he's done 3 round jerseys. I was on every single one of them. And we've known each other for 31 years. So he's probably my biggest, second to my dad. My dad was probably my hero, my real hero. And then Charlie, who
Mhm.
was my biggest supporter. And then I think Cliff is an equal supporter to him. There's a lot of people in Jersey that are supportive, but I don't see them on a regular basis. And now I haven't swum for 18 months. I think people think I've given up, but they see me in the water from time to time. But as far as local heroes, there was a lady before Sarah Thomas called Alison Streeter. She was the queen of the channel for many, many years.
Mhm.
And she's now opted out. She's been out of swimming for 20 years. She's taken up a new life in Wales, doing a holiday doing something completely different, switched off from the swimming world. But I try and go to the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame induction weekends. They have them in different places each year.
Mhm.
And so this year was New York, and I received an award. I went over because I was receiving an award, and I took a Jersey swimmer over with me to be my +1 for dinner.
Mhm.
And she said, I have never been so awe-inspired by meeting all these people at this one evening. And that's why I go, because you become like a sponge, and you soak up all the inspiration of all these people. So this year was New York, and that was fantastic. Last year was in Naples, and I went to Naples. And then I've been to Melbourne, I've been to Los Angeles, I've been to Fort Lauderdale, I've been to lots of different Cork, London, and next year is in Cancun in Mexico. I've already booked my flights. I'm going off to that. And then there'll be a surprise for the following year, but I can't tell you that. It's a big secret at the moment. So
What if you mentioned that you're likely to sort of come back in swimming after effectively an 18-month break?
Mm.
Um, what does that 18-month break felt like? Has it been a really good break, a period of
yeah,
reflection?
yes.
And you mentioned Alison Streeter kind of walked away from swimming. Did you ever feel that you were going to walk away?
No, I mean, my last swim, you may or may not remember, it was done. I did it in memory of Charlie, but it had taken 4 years to do because of it. I actually booked it in 2016 for 2020. I'd already paid the deposit for that swim before I did my 2-way, so I couldn't back out of it, which is my 6th decade channel swim. And of course, 2020 came, COVID came, I couldn't train. Charlie got poorly, very poorly, and then I lost him at the end of COVID, at the end of lockdown, really. So everything was on hold. I'd already postponed it to 2021. I then went to Dover, and there was we made a big thing about it in 2021 because it had been postponed, and because of COVID and because of Charlie. There was a huge thing about it and made it really, really big. And I think that added extra pressure. And I went to Dover 3 times that year, never got it done because of the weather. So when I came back, I kind of switched off. I'd had enough already. And people kept saying, when you going to your swim? And I said, well, it's booked for next year. Da, da, da. So when I actually went to do it last year, I'd hardly done any training. I think I did 1 6-hour swim, and then I ticked over. And we went away very quietly. We didn't make a big thing of it. We just flew away. We went to Dover. The weather was absolutely perfect for the whole week. Got the swim done, came back an absolute hero. The accolades I got last year were unbelievable. And I think it was because of the emotion, because it was for Charlie. It had turned it around. But I have to tell you that swim, which was for me an absolute textbook swim. I started on the steps on Shakespeare Beach on a beautiful sunny morning. And I finished in the sunshine on a slipway in France with my friends in Champagne. They had champagne waiting for me. And it was daylight all the way along. I'd taken the rest of Charlie's ashes with me. I got out of the water, had some champagne, got back to the boat, put the rest of Charlie into the sea, and sat on the boat. And I reflected on that. And that's where my book is starting, because I'm writing a book. And for me, it was the most iconic, perfect textbook swim I've ever done, because it started and finished exactly where I wanted. You can't replicate that. I will never be able to replicate that again. The emotion on that day, and I did the least amount of training I've ever done, and it was the nicest swim I've ever done. So there's a lot to be said for being relaxed. I was healthy. I was uninjured before I started. I was uninjured when I finished. I was very happy with that. And the time is immaterial on a channel swim. It really is. And the last year saw a new world record for the fastest swim of, I think it's 6 hours 45. And then no, this year we've had the fastest at 6:45 and the longest at 29 hours. So you've got that extension, that range of the slowest and the fastest in 1 year this year. And this has been a terrible summer, really. And all the good swims were done in September, when we had that lovely lull of lovely, warm, settled weather. And the channel was like glass. People were swimming across in straight lines. They had a very low neap tide window. And those swims were iconic as well. There were people there doing 9, 10, 11, 12-hour swims who you'd think would have done a 15, 16-hour swim in general, but they were going across really fast because the weather was everything, just perfect. But for me, that was the best swim I've ever done, because it was just wonderful.
A very special occasion as well.
It was very special, very emotional. And I only had Cliff and my friend Emma on board, kept it very quiet. There wasn't a circus. It wasn't, it was just great. And we kept it low key all the way. And I think that was the way forward for me, really.
Now, you touched on a little earlier, it didn't escape my notice, that moment is how you start your book. What was the point at which you decided to write a book?
No, well, I started it after my two-way, actually. But then I've added to it. So many of my friends are writing books, and they're good books. And I've got a lot to write, and it's taking a long time to write it. I don't know how to put a book together. So I've got lots of little stories from over the years. I've got lots of scrapbooks with stories in and pictures. And I'm now at the point where I actually need to try and somehow pull it all together into a story. And I don't know how to do that. So I'm trying to work out how to do that. Because everybody that I know has written a book has done one channel swim or one this or one that. And I think, well, I've got a lot to say and a lot to write and a lot of information to share, which I hopefully will help a lot of people.
Do you know yet how it's going to be? Is it sort of half biographical, half
I think it'll be a story about me and my swimming life. I do have a title in mind. I've got 2 titles in mind, but I've just got to work out how to do it, really. I'm not academic. I'm not very good at writing things down. I'm a doer. I'm not a writer. So
But I think it'll be fascinating, and I think
I hope so.
you're a really good talker.
Oh, thank you.
This comes across really, really well, and I think sometimes if we worry too much about structure, we
Yeah.
lose the essence of the person.
I talk from the heart. I have nothing to hide. What you see is what you get. I think a lot of people can be a bit intimidated with people who are successful, but they shouldn't be. They should just accept the fact that people can be successful. If you're in America and you're successful, they hold you up in very high regard. And sometimes in Jersey, I think if you are successful and good, a lot of people want to knock you down. And I've seen that happen. And a lot of people get very envious. The green-eyed monster, it's an insular thing, I think. And that upsets me that people can be like that. Which is why I've just kept myself a very low key for the last 18 months. Just because there were so many things happening at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. I'm trying to declutter my house. I've now got more awards than I can manage that I didn't expect, which is lovely and wonderful. But a lot of people don't like that in Jersey. So, my life is my life, and I'm going to live it the best I can, and I'm going to hope that other people will benefit from that.
It seems to me some of your goals are quite short term, in the moment, perhaps like dancing.
Yes.
And others are very long term, 4-year plan to swim the channel. That's definitely a long term goal.
Well, that wasn't supposed to be a 4-year plan, but yes, I booked it in 2016 because I know now if you want to book a channel swim, you have to book 3 years in advance. So I booked that on the slot that I wanted in 2020. And of course, the way things happened, I never got that slot, but I got a great slot and I got a great day. And it just happened to be the right day for me. Long distance swimming, channel swimming, is probably the most unpredictable sport, hobby, activity, whatever you want to call it, that you can ever think about. And that's the first thing I tell people. You can book your swim, but there's no guarantee you're going to get it done then. It could take you 2, 3, 4 years. I know, I've seen it happen. It's happened to me 3 or 4 times. So you have to be, so if you're running a marathon and you know it's going to be on the 26th of April, you know it's going to happen on the 26th of April. So you can plan your training specifically, your taper, your feeding, your carbo loading and all that. Can't do that with channel swimming. You have to stay fit, strong, unhealthy until it happens. And a lot of people overtrain big time. And I see that as well. And they're training too much until the day of their swim instead of relaxing and sort of resting and relaxing. But that comes with experience as well.
And how does that affect your kind of life horizon? How far ahead do you plan? And maybe that's changed with age and experience and where you are in your life. But do you look 12 months ahead, 18 months ahead? What's your life horizon?
I'm trying to live in the moment right now because, I'm 66. We don't know what's going on around the corner. I'm trying to plan for that. I'm trying to not get sucked into doing too many. The first 6 months since I came back after my swim last year, everybody was saying, "You had such a perfect swim. You're going to be doing another one in 10 years' time, I'm sure." And I go, "At the moment, I'm not. And I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years' time. Nobody knows where we're going to be in 10 years' time." And I have said to everybody very, very publicly now, many, many times, that if in 20 2032, which is 10 years from my last swim, if I'm in the right place and I'm in the right frame of mind and I'm still fit and I'm still enjoying it, then I might consider another channel swim, but somebody's going to have to pay me for it and pay me to do it because that's the only way I would do it, I think, because it's expensive. It's expensive. It's £4,000 next year to swim the channel, and that's just the boat. That's before you get there. So it's not a cheap hobby anymore, you know, and there's no guarantee you're going to get it done anyway at that time.
If you were to meet 8-year-old Sally,
Yeah.
and you were at a, I don't know, ice cream parlor or a cafe, what would you and 8-year-old Sally chat about?
Thinking back to when I was 8, all I wanted to do was swim and play my guitar.
Mhm.
I remember my mum went to Alderney with my grandmother,
Mhm.
and I couldn't go on the day she went because I had a swimming competition. I think I must have been 10 or 11. So she arranged for my auntie to bring me over on Origny. And so my auntie said to me, right, you need to go and pack your bag.
Mhm.
And I shall remember this forever. And we got to Alderney and we arrived on the plane. I had my guitar with me, and we got to Alderney and I went and saw my mum, and she opened my bag, and all I had in my bag was a swimming costume, a towel, and I think a change of pair of pants, and I had my guitar, and that's all I was interested in. So very simple pleasures in life, you know, and I'm a bit the same now. I have a very comfortable retirement life, which I'm enjoying, and I think that if I had met an 8-year-old Sally now, I would say just carry on doing what you're doing, because you've got to enjoy life. There's too many kids have too much pressure put on them, I think, these days. And I think, I mean, if you have a passion, if you have a sporting skill, you should be doing that, and you
Mhm.
should be using that to make you happy. And if it makes you happy and you do it as a career, it'll never feel like work. And that's how it was for me.
Mhm.
Swimming teaching became my way of imparting my passion, I think, onto many others. And I think I've done it. I think I've done a lot of good for a lot of people doing that. And I'm still doing that, and I will do it until I can't not. I can't not do it, if you know
Mhm.
what I mean.
Sally, this has been a fantastic conversation. You are a remarkable woman, and
Thank you.
story after story after story is just filled with positivity. You're effervescent. And I don't doubt that you've had hard times. I can imagine probably in the inky blackness occasionally
Yeah.
times are very hard, but you come across as fundamentally a positive person.
I try and be as positive as I can, even at times, even when I lost Charlie. You
Mhm.
know, I had to turn that around. Charlie'd been very ill for 24 years.
Mhm.
He'd had a series of heart attacks, which ended up in heart surgery in 1997. And he turned round to me after he'd had his heart surgery at Papworth Hospital and said, I'm not going to change my lifestyle, you know. And I went, okay. I said, but I'm not going to end up in hospital with you ever again. But little did I know how much hospital time we had to
Mhm.
spend with each other for the next 24 years. And then it developed into diabetes type 2, which then added more complications to his life and my life. And I nearly lost him. I don't know how many times. I was talking to somebody yesterday about it, and they said, we had no idea. I said, well, we never dwelled on it. You know, Charlie was as positive as he could be. He wasn't well, but he just enjoyed as much of his life as he could. And it
Mhm.
was really only 2017 was a bad year for him. And then we got the dog. And a year later, he was walking the dog by himself. So the dog gave him the 2-3 extra years, good years. And then he went downhill very quickly when they had to change his pacemaker and couldn't put the new one in because he got sepsis. So that's how the end of his life went. But during the time of that happening was was very stressful and very unhappy. But then it was COVID as well. So there were added complications. I couldn't travel with him to the John Radcliffe Hospital, you know, the 3 trips that he had in the middle of COVID. And it was just, that was the worst thing. And I think when we all look back on 2020, 2021, which were 2 awful years, as much as I could be positive, I didn't realize how his illness and his being poorly was affecting me. And it wasn't until I'd gone to the hairdressers one day to have my hair cut when we could. And she said, you know, your hair's falling out. And I went, I had no idea. I had no idea. And she said, it's stress. You know, you've been under a lot of stress and pressure. And so there's a lot of people that would have, I mean, I know a lot of people who've lost their loved ones in the last couple of years suddenly, and it's been sudden death rather than a gradual losing, like I had 24 years to prepare for it. We nearly lost him a lot of times. And these people who are dealing with sudden death are in a much worse place than I am. Charlie would not want me to be sitting on my laurels doing nothing. He was a very we had 34 years together, you know, and we had 34 fun, traveling, great years, touched with this illness that kept us going, you know. And 2 days before he died, the doctor said to me, have you talked to Charlie about death? And I went, no, we've never talked about dying because we always want to talk about living. And that's where I'm coming from. And she said, I think we need to have that conversation. And I go, okay. And that was probably the hardest conversation I've ever had to have. And, you know, Charlie turned around and said to the doctor, he wasn't worried about dying. He was worried about leaving me on my own, which was really hard to hear. And then I had to say, Charlie, I'm going to be fine. Please, you know, you're the one that's poorly. And sure enough, 2 days later, we lost him, but we lost him in his sleep. So it was very peaceful. And I can talk about it very easily because it was sad, but it wasn't stressful, and almost a relief when he did finally pass away, because I didn't have to worry about coming back to find him on the floor or collapsed somewhere or, you know, whatever. So, yes, we had our times of stress, but we can't all live our lives with no stress. We all have to have a bit of stress in our lives.
Sally, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, I'm just recording stuff at the moment. Clearly, if there's anything that you want to include or exclude from what I eventually put together, just...
No, I've got nothing to hide, Tim. As I say, what you see is what you get. I talk freely about what's happened, and nobody knows what's going to happen in our futures. We've just got to live our lives like it's our last day and just enjoy it. And I'm going to enjoy Strictly Come Dancing finals tonight. And that's my highlight today.
I think to do what you're naturally gifted at, that's clearly a joy. To have the courage to do things that you're not naturally gifted at, I think that's something about the human spirit. And I've always seen that in you.
Thank you.
Others have too. And I'm really pleased that we've had this conversation. Thank you.
I'm really honoured to speak, and I am very happy to speak anytime to anyone. And if anybody needs people to speak publicly about positivity and motivation, I'm happy to do that.